Hey everybody, it's Golmadex, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and a happy spooky season, everybody. We've got a week of Duskmourn drafts back for this October, so gonna be hopping back to the format for this flashback draft season. Without further ado, let's just get into things here. We honestly have a disappointingly weak opening pack for returning to the set. This is one of the weakest packs of Duskmourn I think I've ever seen. There's like Duskmourn's Domination, which is a very, very expensive mind control that also weakens whatever you're stealing quite a bit. Still sort of playable because mind controls are still quite powerful. Like if you're playing against a green deck and you steal a 6/6, this is still decent, getting you that 3/6 body. But then there's like Unsettling Twins is fine stat line for the cost. Fear of Surveillance is a fine stat line for the cost. Not a ton going on here. I'm actually going to go for Fear of Surveillance. This is a card that I think I enjoy a little bit more than you would think. It doesn't look like too much, but it just plays really well with a lot of the mechanics in the set. This is a spooky kind of format, so it has a lot of graveyard-related stuff, so being able to surveil and put things in your grave is helpful. Plus, the Delirium archetype wants you to have 4 different card types in your grave, and Fear of Surveillance helps do that. If it ends up in your grave, it's both an enchantment and a creature, and by surveilling, you can try to get like lands into your graveyard as well, so I think Fear of Surveillance plays a lot better than it looks, and might actually be my favorite card of that first pack. For pick 2 is a much, much, much better pack. So we have Grand Entryway and Elegant Rotunda, showing the split enchantments in the set, where you can cast either half and then activate the other half later. Very good for Eerie decks that care about playing enchantments and activating rooms. But if I want to take a card for that, the Bottomless Pool and Locker Room I think gets the nod, even though it's off color. Just a little better. Great card though. Vile Mutilator is excellent in Reanimator strategies. Cheating that out early is great. But then the pick that I'm going to make here is the Arabella Abandoned Doll. Fits into the best aggro strategy in the format, which is red-white. It is some Boros beatdown with creatures with power 2 or less, which is again one of those little synergies that Fear of Surveillance has that is very easy to miss. It's also good in the red-white power 2 or less deck. So I think Fear of Surveillance is just good in every white deck except green-white, which is the weakest white deck by far anyway. So that's why I actually enjoy this card a decent bit. Pick number 3 now, very easy, Sheltered by Ghost. This card's absolutely absurd. I would be surprised if it is not the best uncommon in the whole set. 2 mana for an Oblivion Ring plus +1/+0 lifelink and Ward 2. Yes, if your opponent blows up the creature that you put this on, they are killing your creature and getting their card back, kind of countering your removal. But by the time they do that, you've already gotten some really good tempo out of getting rid of their threat for a while, and you've probably gained a good chunk of life, so huge tempo, huge life total swing. And the fact that this gives Ward 2 as well makes it so it will very likely take a while before they can blow up whatever you put the Sheltered by Ghosts onto. Card is ridiculous. Pick 4 now, some really nice options for Boros, so I don't think we need to go off color. That said, these packs have been much, much stronger than our opening pack. There are great off-color options like Nowhere to Run, Unable to Scream for efficient removal, Fear of Falling for just a good flying threat. But on color we have Piggy Bank, Unsettling Twins, and Glassworks/Shattered Yard here, which are all quite nice cards. I'm going to go for the Glassworks here, get a little bit more removal into the deck nice and early, and this doubles as a slow win condition in the late game. If your opponent manages to stabilize against all your early aggro, having a way to be able to chip away at them without having to attack, it's actually pretty nice. So I do like the Glassworks Shattered Yard here. Pick number 5, Orphans of the Wheat is perfectly fine in the red-white power 2 or less deck. It is better in green-white survival. That archetype cares about having your creatures tapped during your second main phase. So the simplest way to do that is just attack with them and have them survive combat, hence the survival name of that mechanic. But there are cards like this Orphans of the Wheat that kind of get around that and can get a little cheesy, where you're tapping your other creatures without having to put them at risk. Impossible Inferno's fine. Certainly better in decks that are better at getting Delirium than Boros, but would be perfectly fine here. We'll have enchantment creatures and artifact creatures, instants and sorceries. We could hit Delirium by 5 mana, but still it's 5 mana removal for an aggressive strategy. I think I'll go Orphans here, although even Norn's perfectly fine. Just a 1 mana 2/1. Pick number 6. Acrobatic Cheerleader pretty easily. There are okay off-color cards like Bashful Beastie and Popular Egotist, but nothing exciting enough to really incentivize me to dabble into another color. Pick 7. Again, fine cards, Moldering Gym, Winter's Intervention, but we can take Fear of Immobility pretty happily. Pick 8. Okay, Wildfire Wicker Folk might finally be worth a speculation over like Hand That Feeds or Colt Healer. I mean, if so, it's just barely. Because like I have one mono red card and no green cards yet, so it's a pretty deep speculation. It's just that the other two cards would be very, very filler. I guess, yeah, I'll still take the Colt Healer here as our first 3-mana creature for mana curve purposes. Pick 9. Nothing exciting. But this was our opening pack. From pack 1, pick 1, this pack had nothing exciting. We'll go for a Razorkin there. Pick 10. All filler again. We'll take Shepherding Spirits. Now a Friendly Ghost. Weirdly kind of okay in Boros. Certainly not exciting still, but okay. Well, this is a decent sign for like blue-white here. Seeing 2 pretty solid blue spells that late. So if we open a great blue-white card, we might head in that direction instead. Pack 2, pick 1. We did not... I mean, we opened a solid blue spell, but we opened an absolutely absurd black rare. And I'm only 3 cards deep into red, only 2 of which are premium, Arabella and Glassworks. Black did not seem overly cut or anything. So I don't mind speculating on Unstoppable Slasher here, overtaking like a most valuable Slayer to stay Boros, or stay hidden, stay silent to speculate on blue. I think Slasher's more than powerful enough to speculate in that direction instead. Now we have Fear being hunted, which is real nice in red aggressive strategies. Actually, Percussionist's even better, getting things started turn 1. Weirdly, 1-for-1 removal spells like Murder have not been the greatest in this set. Especially not like a Final Vengeance. Those would be normally pretty high picks in most formats, but never been super, super excited about those. Yeah, unless I just want to completely force the Slasher, I think Percussionist is just a better card on rate. We'll grab Percussionist here. Now bad black spells again. Pretty mid-red spells. Pretty bad pack. There's 1 good green removal spell and 1 decent blue draw spell. I don't hate Ticket Booth and Tunnel of Hate. It is another power 2 or less creature. Doubles as a double striking kind of win condition in the endgame. Well, there's Midnight Mayhem. The pick 4 there. Decent enough sign that we can stick to Boros here and end up with a pretty powerful deck. This is a great signpost uncommon, similar to Arabella in terms of power level. This just gets a lot of damage in when you play it, a big life total swing because you're lifelinking as well, and it gives you the wide board state that you need to break through some of the bigger blockers that decks will use to stabilize. If they just have a couple really big blockers, but you have like 5 creatures on board, you can still find those last few points of damage you need by letting some of your creatures die on future swings. Living Phone and Trial of Agony are both pretty bad in their own way. Trial of Agony, you're always destroying the second best creature your opponent has. And Living Phone can miss. And if it misses, it's a really terrible card. 3 mana for a 2/1, and then it dies and does nothing. It's just so astronomically bad when it misses that doesn't really make up for it when it hits, because it's only solid when it hits. It's not like great or anything. I might go for Hand That Feeds over these, but it's probably still Trial of Agony. Jump Scare's a fine way to get your last few points of damage in late, but there's also a good card draw spell with Painter Studio Defaced Gallery. This also plays really well with like Midnight Mayhem that makes a lot of creatures. The Turn Inside Out, efficient combat trick that leaves a creature behind. It's also pretty good. Actually some really nice options here. For Boros, we're not really going to be able to get much when it comes to straight card draw, so I think I'm going to go Painter Studio here. The least replaceable kind of ability. Oh, there we go. A Reverend Gremlin does give us card selection. We can discard a card and draw a card every time that we play a creature with power 2 or less. I guess not every time, just once per turn, but still quite nice. And it's also a 2-mana 2/2 menace, so it's an evasive threat we can get on the board early. Good card. Other perfectly viable options, as I said before, I like Fear of Surveillance, and that Turn Inside Out. Even Vengeful Possession to steal a victory in the late game could be fine in a deck this aggressive. Now we can get a Turn Inside Out. Don't care too much about dual lands in a strict 2-color deck, especially a more aggressive one where playing tap lands could hinder our curve out. Most Valuable Slayer. Perfectly happy to run this card just by itself. As a 2-power creature with good synergy, it helps your smaller creatures get attacks in later into bigger blockers. But it also has one wombo combo that's very fun to assemble if you manage to do so. If you find one of the Fear of Being Hunteds that forces your opponent to block it, and it's a 4-power creature with only 2 toughness, all of a sudden you're sending in a 5-power first striker that has to be blocked every turn. It's really rude. Alright, perfectly solid looking draft here. We've already got almost all of the non-land cards that we need. We just need 23 total. We're at 20 out of 23. So we just need a few more playable spells, and from then on we get to start cutting our most filler stuff to really get this deck ticking. Sort our creatures out by mana curve, and plop our card draw spells, removal spells, anything that doesn't really impact the board into its own separate pile so we can see what our actual mana curve looks like and start focusing on that once we find our 23rd playable. For pack 3, pick one, a relatively easy Trapped in the Screen here. The Oblivion Ring effect, exile whatever you need. More flexible than Seized from Slumber. This one only kills creatures and only does it efficiently if you shoot a tapped creature. Now, it's still not a bad spell. I just do prefer Trapped in the Screen over it. Really good rare here, Swarm Weaver, but obviously completely off of what we're doing. Could get Legend ruled, but Arabella is more than strong enough to make up for that. I would love to have a second copy for consistency. Drawing her more often will make our deck more powerful. She is quite strong, so we'll grab Arabella here. Glad that we're seeing some more Turn Inside Outs get opened here, because that card does play really well with these low power attackers, like 1 and 2 power attackers like Arabella, making sure they stay relevant and can get those attack triggers. So hopefully we will be able to pick up 1 or 2 more combat tricks by the end of this draft. Ideally just like 1 more Turn Inside Out, I think would be perfect. Speaking of perfect, Clockwork Percussion is the perfect little 1-mana haster. Get some early damage in and make sure you've got some power 2 or less creatures on the board to be attacking with alongside your Arabella. It's really good with the Defaced Gallery as well, buffing it up. Pick 4 now. There's a Jump Scare, I suppose. I think I take that over Conductive Machete. Just got a lot of 4-mana stuff already. Machete would basically just be replacing Razorkin. It's fine. I mean, I do want like 17 creatures in this deck. 16 or 17, like a pretty high creature count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 right now. And I have like at least 3 creatures I really want to cut, so we do want to get like 3 more good creatures. But again, I think the Jump Scare does play really well with the Arabella. It's also a good way to get in your last couple points of damage. Take the Jump Scare there. Don't need the Hand that feeds. Perfectly happy to take Lionheart Glimmer. We're going relatively wide. We've only got the 1 card that makes like a bunch of tokens off 1 spell, but we have a high creature count for Lionheart Glimmer. I'm fine with that as a second 5-drop. 1 more top-end spell. Get rid of the 6-mana Shepherding Spirits for that. Glimmerlight's perfectly reasonable here as well. Certainly like it the best in blue-white, where you get triggers every time an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control. But it's just a flexible equipment. It comes with a creature. Make sure you're still impacting the board. And now I can take a machete here over like a Soul Rager that's just pretty bad. Similar to Glimmerlight, just more expensive, later game version. Seized from Slumber. I'm not sure if we end up running that. That looks like all we're going to get for the rest of this draft. Yeah, unfortunately, some other aggressive red players here do end up scooping up the turn inside outs. So I'm pretty happy I took the jump scare then. So I did get that at least one more combat trick that I wanted to find in this final pack. The Glimmerlight and the Conductive Machete also do help the Arabella stay relevant. Make it a little more likely she's big enough to get in for a future swing without dying. So those were solid pickups as well. Alright, time to build the deck. We're at 26 cards right now, so I think we really just need to cut 3 non-creatures and we'll be there. So for creatures, we are sitting on essentially 17 creatures. We've sorted our manifestors up top here as well. I did put Turn Inside Out into its own pile because I don't really count that as a creature, but certainly the equipment that manifest when they come to play, or the rooms that manifest when they come into play, those are just straight up creatures. So I do count those. The Midnight Mayhem as well, the token producer. So 17 creatures here. That is enough creatures to cut 1 or 2 if we have creatures that are significantly worse than our spells here. I think Trial of Agony is our worst removal spell, even counting the Seized from Slumbers. And Seized from Slumbers are potential cuts as well. I do feel like, I mean, at least the Seized from Slumbers, even though they're not the most synergistic, because we do have to spend 5 mana to blow up like blockers with them, I think they're still good enough to prefer cutting some of our more filler creatures over those. But I think I cut like Trial of Agony and then 1 or 2 creatures are Seized from Slumbers after that. Yeah, so we'll go Trial of Agony. No survival abilities, so Orphans of the Wheat matters a lot less. I guess I have 1 Acrobatics Cheerleader. I have 1 single survival ability, but still not crazy for Orphans of the Wheat. It's cute synergy with a vigilant creature like Fear of Surveillance as well, but that still adds up to a total of 2 cards with direct synergy. We could also do something where we cut one of the high mana value spells and cut the 17th land, something like that. But I like our top end filler more than our mid-range filler here, like Cold Healer or something here. Yeah, I don't hate just cutting like Orphans and Cold Healer. Going a little higher curve, a little more mid-range, even pure aggro. Yeah, let's do that. We'll cut like that. Call it a deck here, hop into gameplay, and see how far we can take our first draft of the return trip to Duskmourn, House of Horror. Well, this is very obviously not keepable. There are 2 spells total, 1 combat trick and 1 removal spell. That does not a good hand make. So we'll mulligan down to a 5-card hand, sorry, a 6-card hand of 3 lands, a Glimmerlight, a 5-mana creature, and a Turn Inside Out. I think we gotta keep it at that point. Certainly not impressive, but likely better than the average 5-card hand, just due to the sheer card disadvantage of being at only 5 cards total. So not a lovely start here, but this hand is certainly not unplayable, and we did draw probably the best draw on the deck to work with that turn 5 Lionheart Glimmer. We now have the Midnight Mayhem to go nice and wide beforehand. We haven't drawn a single land yet, though, which means that if we don't hit our lands on curve, we're going to be doing nothing. I could play Shelter by Ghost just to get rid of their untap spell. That really doesn't seem necessary, but I don't hate it just for making the most of my mana. But I'm still going to hold on to this for something better. Okay. It's a perfectly viable target for Sheltered by Ghosts, and we did miss the land draw here. No lands drawn these first 4 turns. The Survivor is small enough to die to Glassworks, so I'm going to lead with that. As Sheltered by Ghosts could clear out bigger stuff. Our opponent's 3 colors, green, white, and blue. There's the Silent Hall Creeper. Has some really good abilities. We are not drawing lands whatsoever. I'll have to Sheltered by Ghosts that Hall Creeper before it draws them a card and starts popping off. An awkward thing here is this doesn't add any toughness to my token, so I can't attack into the Centipede or anything with this. I just kind of slow them down here. I have the turn inside out, but that does not protect my token. It just replaces it with a manifested creature, so the enchantment would fall off. I probably should have just pushed damage there and went for turn inside out pre-combat. Because if they don't block, then I get 2 points of damage in. And if they do block, then I have a 2/2 manifested out to put the Shelter by Ghosts on anyway. They do have the removal for the Glimmer there. Literal 0 lands still. So... is this on Cheerleader? Hold up, turn inside out? Or just play a ticket booth? Manifesting doesn't help us draw anything specific, because it's basically just getting rid of the 2 cards that we see. It's just like milling 2, essentially. It's not like surveilling or scrying. So I don't feel the need to do that here. Yeah, Hall Creeper's just going to start popping off here now. Let's go Arabella equip, I guess. Keeps the Centipede off of us, gives us a decently sturdy blocker, a high toughness enough creature to get attacks in pretty easily as well. Far enough behind here to be totally fine trading a combat trick for Arabella. That one's a little awkward since it sticks around. But we still 2 for 1 if we find removal for Centipede, so that's fine. Especially considering we did keep both of our destroy a tapped creature spells in this deck. So Hall Creeper's already drawn the card. So from here on out, it's going to get 2 counters. And then it becomes a Centipede. I guess if they play any decent creature, they play like the 5-mana 5/4 within the next 2 turns, and that's just going to be a nightmare for me still. right? And they might even just have the counterspell here anyway. They do not. Got a hexproof trick instead. No, they're just manifesting, flashing out a creature. Slimy Aquarium for another creature. Hmm. Probably dead here. But we can seize from slumber the centipede if they don't find delirium. One of the best bomb rares in the whole set is here as well, just in case we somehow find a way to stabilize. Zimone makes a 7/7 when they play their 7th land, and then 11/11 when they play their 11th, 13/13 when they play their 13th, so on and so forth from there. Down to 5. And here's the 7/7. Right on time. Definitely flip the game around now, right? That was unfortunate, but that's Magic. I mean, there's not much you can do. Some games are going to end like that. The one thing is that I did put a land on the bottom when I mulliganed, but the problem is that if we mulligan to 6 and then we keep 4 lands and 2 spells, we're just so likely to flood out. Keeping a hand like that, like I think it's objectively correct to go 3 lands, 3 spells on that opener. You're just statistically quite unlikely to miss like 6 or 7 land draws in a row like we did. It is what it is. That'll be 0-1 heading into game 2. Here we are on the draw for game number 2 with a 2-land opener, but it has Percussionist into Arabella with a combat trick alongside them. It's a powerful enough start to be worth the risk of Mana Screw here. And our first draw of the entire game is a land, which is great. Second draw is also land. We are doing much better. Much better than last time. To the end of your next turn, you may play it. Okay. We have enough higher mana value stuff in this deck. I think I'm going to hold off on Percussionist until I have at least 4 mana up the turn after I play it. Oh, Jesus. Standard staple. Standard all-star Screaming Nemesis is here. I have the Trapped in the Screen, which is now just a complete necessity. I don't think I Sheltered by Ghosts. Well, they're blue-red. The Ward 2 is big. But say they untap. They play like a 2-mana bounce spell or something. That gets us real bad. Yeah, against blue, I feel like Sheltered by Ghosts is just a little too risky here. Arabella is kind of insane with Sheltered by Ghosts on her, though, so that one's very tempting. They hold all of their mana up. Should not have played that land pre-combat, because Percussionist ability. Counterspell a removal spell here. Sure. Trade turn Inside Out into Twist Reality, and Percussionist draws us a card still, so some 1-for-1s there. Unable to Scream, turning Arabelle into a 0/2, and then a Friendly Teddy, just a 2/2. Everybody draws a card when it dies. Then a Fear of Isolation. Well, we definitely play Conductive Machete to get our value off Percussionist, because that'll go away forever in the end step. Neither of these are flippable. What's the better card type for Grave? The Instant, I believe? Nope, I already have all three of those cards in Grave, so it doesn't really matter. Pick the Glimmerlight here. I think that's probably a slightly better card for us to end up having in our hand if they bounce this. Well, that was an incredible draw. Their deck is loaded, Screaming Nemesis, Enduring Curiosity. We are on all commons, uncommons in this deck. So, certainly an uphill battle. Irreverent Gremlin. Don't see a world where I can't just shelter the Enduring Curiosity immediately here. I think I actually just put it on Arabella to force them to play another removal spell on the same Arabella, so we don't get like 2-for-1 off of removal. Got them down to 10 now. We are at 17 currently. Most Valuable Slayer, solid draw. Makes one of their attackers quite good each turn. So they're just going to send in the first striker on the ground and the flyer in the sky. And they could send the whole team in. I'm not likely to block with Gremlin here. They are just going to hit for 5 and save their blockers to stop some of our stuff. Fear of Immobility. Stun the Slayer as their best blocker and hit for 6 here. Definitely a race. They did go for the chump there, so we just hit for 2. Pyroclasm off the top. Blows up our Shelter by Ghosts creature. Blows up their teddy bear as well, but that might not have been off the top as well. That could have been why they went for the chump there. I assume it's off the top, because if it wasn't, I think they probably would have already used it to get Enduring Curiosity back. I mean, if they attack with Fear of Isolation here, they're dead to a removal spell, so we may have the board state to convince them not to swing on this board. They do go for the swing, which if they don't draw another cheap creature or piece of interaction, means they're dead to a lot of cards off the top. That is not one of the ways that they're dead, but the Painter Studio can dig for one. These are also not ways that they're dead. They are both castable this turn. I don't think I need to unlock the Defaced Gallery. Hitting for 4 apiece is already quite threatening. And the really rough part about these Enduring cards is even if I trade with them, they stick on the board and they'll still get the card draw off their creatures. Yeah, I think this is send in and double spell these creatures out. They did have the counterspell for the second creature. Poke us with the Fear of Isolation to draw a card. We're down to 6. And then a gigantic Megalodon. There's the Seized from Slumber for that. Seize that should be lethal, right? So I've got the 2 mana to activate the Gallery. This is 1 damage off of lethal. They have to chump Fear of Immobility and take 3. Go to 1. Still the play. I could play the Cheerleader instead of activating the Defaced Gallery. They would still go to 1. Yeah, that would have been better. They'd still have to block the same way and go to 1, but I'd have 1 more attacker to make it more likely they die based on their draws. Activate Aquarium for 1 blocker. But they have to be able to interact with Arabella or the trigger alone kills them. Got another Seized from Slumber just in case. Attack trigger gets the kill. Very close game of Magic. Some terrifying rares from our opponents. Screaming Nemesis and Enduring Curiosity to work our way through, but just great aggressive stuff from Arabella. Still manages to get there barely in the end, and we are 1-1 heading into game 3. Alright, here we are on the play for game number 3 now. 4 land opening hand, but we have a couple 2 mana creatures to get us started with, and the 5 drop to top off the curve. Playing against blue-black, they have the immediate removal for Arabella, which is unfortunate. Here's our Fear of Surveillance. There's a tapped 2/1 flyer. A lot of lands over here, a lot of mountains specifically, so would be quite rough to draw like a double white spell here. We've only got 1 in the deck though. A lot of mountains. We'll surveil 1 away. Good work from Fear of Surveillance. Mind Skinner, mill us 2 every time they hit us with that flyer. And the Mind Skinner itself is unblockable, mills us 10 when it hits us. Play to the board for now, but I will Seize from Slumber the Mind Skinner soon. I can afford to keep getting milled a bit here to just stop the damage they're dealing to us. I will just keep whatever I see on top regardless, because no matter what I do, it goes to the grave against Piranha Fly. And I guess if they want to hold the chump blocker back, then I get to keep Arabella, but if I surveil her, she's gone. If I don't surveil her, she gets milled and she's gone. Okay, they're at 12. We can deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do I blow that up and hit them for 9? Accept getting milled for 12? To put them at 3 life here? Doesn't seem the craziest. It's certainly risky. Certainly risky. But I'm just not getting damage if I don't clear out Fear of the Dark. I think that's our best bet here. 2-turn kill. We're only getting milled for a bunch if they're not holding those up as blockers, and if they're not holding up those blockers, then obviously are taking way too much damage next turn. I have a little bit of like discard and draw in this deck. We've got that gremlin thing. Tunnel Surveyor. Oof, 2 blockers off 1 spell. Cadaver Lab, pick up a creature from grave to hand, pick up the 5/5. And go mill 10, hold up all the blockers. Force them to lose their whole board. They have to go block, block, block. Chump, chump, chump. It's a very, very, very close game of Magic here. But we win on board. It all depends on what their one unknown is and what their top deck is. But it'd have to be like a combat trick or something, which blue-black shouldn't really have a lot of. If they have like a conductive machete or something, I think that would get us a way to give that Mind Skinner +2. But they do not. Very close. Pretty stressful game of Magic. Obviously looked really risky in the end there, but I think that was our best chance of victory over just blowing up the Mind Skinner and then just sitting there for a long time. I don't really want to sit there against a blue-black strategy, because I feel like they'll have better ways to try to control the game and stabilize if they manage to keep a long game by having like a big chunky blocker like that. But I mean, I could see the argument. The way that we would have ended up drawing, like with removal spells coming up, did mean it probably would have worked out perfectly fine if we did it the other way and blew up the Mind Skinner. I don't know. But we take those. We are 2-1 heading into game 4. All right, here we are for game 4 on the play this time around, leading off with a hasty Clockwork Percussionist. Solid opening hand. He is Sheltered by Ghosts and Midnight Mayhem, some of the strongest cards in our deck. Again, we are a all commons and uncommons deck, so these are the equivalent of kind of our like bomb rares, really. Sheltered by Ghosts, Midnight Mayhem, and our double Arabella. Those are our big quote-unquote bombs that we're really wanting to find in as many games as possible. Just pop that and get a bunch of extra damage in here early. Our opponent is on Soul Tie. The green decks, especially in these like color trios, green, blue, and black, do a lot of good just graveyard shenanigans, some delirium stuff. Cathartic Parting, just straight up naturalize on the Sheltered by Ghosts itself. Pretty great for our opponent there. Midnight Mayhem looks fine. Machete's fine too. Let's go wide here. I'll just bounce off Percussionist if I send that in, so it's kind of the same either way. Might as well hold the blocker up. That's pretty funny. I don't think I cast that against all this open mana, but it is funny. Limmerburst? Sure, get a 1/1 draw too. Sure, 1/1 trades for a 1/1. They take a bunch here. They're down to 7. Here's Machete. I guess I should have picked the planes in case they bounced that back to my hand. But that's a pretty corner case. They might be dead to Sheltered by Ghosts. Actually, not quite. Especially if they have their own. Boy. Yeah, if they don't die this turn, this is going to be really, really bad for me. And I don't believe I can make them die this turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can put them to 2. I can put them to 2. My lack of a second white here, very painful. All right. Put this on a gremlin. We deal 5 this turn. And I put it on a gremlin there because the removal that they have in their hand that we know of is Sheltered by Ghosts, which exiles. And I don't want them to exile our Percussionist and get rid of its death trigger. That said, because of the ward, they probably just can't even do it here. Stick Twister would make that more likely than about anything else, because it lifelinks in the end step too. Oh, it deals damage to us if we don't sack an online permanent or discard a card. Okay, so we just discard a card. Make sure they don't gain extra life. They're essentially 4 here. Because Stick Twister gains life on a block. So if our opponent's at 4, if I leave this as a 2-2 and I move that to a 1-1 to make it a 3-2. 2-3-2 sending in trade, trade, take 1, 2, 3. They stay at 1 life and live. Turn Inside Out would be a lethal top deck. If I ditch a card here. Percussionist, I think, is also lethal. Ah, if I had 1 more mana, it would be lethal. Because I can't move the machete, they can chump there, trade there, take 3. Actually, moving Glimmerlight might get there. Block, block, take 4, they're dead. Block, block, take 4, they're dead. Yeah, that should get there. Okay. Pretty good game all around, but the lifelinking blocker that could maybe get some trip damage, and then also the Sheltered by Ghost for remove something and get some lifelink. Those were some relatively threatening ways they might have been able to start stabilizing had we not found that extra follow through getting that haste creature there in the end. So pretty lucky draws, and we are 3-1 heading into game number 5. All right, here we are for game number 5. No red source in this opening hand, and there's 2 red spells in it. Obviously quite risky for that reason. If it hits a red source, it's great. Having Arabella and Sheltered by Ghosts. Really... I mean... I am going to take the risk here. Fear of Surveillance can set up our draws a bit. Dig us farther towards the red source should we not hit it naturally. And they're 2 pretty solid castable spells regardless of draws. Someday I'll dodge a rare, but it is not this game. In fact, did our opponent last game play any rares? I'm actually not sure. I don't think they did. But every other game for sure. I mean, Screaming Nemesis. We played against Silent Hall Creeper earlier as well. What's the other one? The Screaming Nemesis stack hit us with a double rare. That was pretty scary. Growing Dread. Manifest. It counters on that whenever they flip that thing up. exile our enchantment creature here. Tragic. Well, these first 3 draws are not mountains, I can tell you that much. At this point, we're just slowing them down. I'll take whatever tempo I can get out of this Sheltered by Ghosts. If they get their thing back, it's not even the worst, because we did get rid of a counter from it forever. Oh. Alright. That is indeed Magic the Gathering. Took a risk here, and it did not pan out. Now we've only got a couple more turns to have a shot at all this game. Oh, real lucky manifest too. A 3-1 to make it a 4-2, and the top decks are just red. Spells, I can block there, take 6, be at 7, -6, go to 1. But they get their other creature back, and there's no draws in the game. That'll turn that around. Alright, our only 2 losses have been to just really rough draws. That one was certainly a little self-imposed. Our very first loss of the day. However, I don't think there was any argument for other mulligans or keeps. That one, though, I mean, I was considering the mulligan. That was very much a risk to keeping that, but had it paid out, would have been a very, very good hand. So, sadly, we do not live in the universe where we hit the red source within the top 5 or even 6 cards, I think, that game. Particularly rough, they had the cheap exile removal for the Surveiller as well. To have that outlet to digging for lands just go away before it gets to do any surveilling. This hand's kind of awkward, but I don't think I can afford to mulligan this, seeing as the ways that we lost our first 2 games. This hand cannot lose in that way. But the fact that it doesn't have a 2-drop in our very aggressive Boros deck is quite a bummer. That makes it a pretty bad hand. If this were a mono-colored opener, this would have been a snap mulligan. Mono-colored and nothing till turn 3. But it had both our colors, so here we are. Just gonna put Sheltered by Ghosts on board and pray that somehow our green, white, black opponent bounces it back to our hand. So they're going to discard a card to be able to reanimate something huge from their graveyard. Luckily, our opening hand is pretty decent against the reanimator strategy, with a exile removal spell and a destroy anything removal spell. Okay. So, if we draw a land, I could play both of these removal spells next turn, which is really enticing. So that's going to show up and exile one of my blockers, but then I'll kill it and get it back to my hand. So maybe I just want to play the cheapest creatures. I suppose there's like a small argument for just playing nobody here. Because if they exile and put Sheltered by Ghosts back to my hand, I'm very happy. This is really weird, but I think I'm going to play nothing. I probably should have poked for 2 still. Play nothing, seize the goat, and trap the fear. Okay, wait room, no reanimation yet. Playing nothing does not work out. They do not have reanimation yet. It's fine, now I've got a really good turn to Fear of Immobility. Yeah, and there's the fear reduction on the fear of immobility, which I'll just get right back to my hand. Just stun their 5/5 again. A gremlin for now. If I draw a 2-drop, I would really like to have played this land now. Then I could play the 2-drop, draw and discard a card, discarding one of these 4s, and then also play the 5-drop Fear of Immobility if I top deck the basic off of casting it. And if I don't top deck the basic off of casting it with Gremlin, I play it, draw a card, discard a card, and then play one of these 4s. Right, playing this land out makes sure that I can double spell a 2 and a 5 if I'm lucky off of the Gremlin draw. And if I'm not lucky off the draw, then I can still just do a 2 and a 4, which is perfectly fine. Oh god, did they get a great manifest? Got a pretty dang good one, Cynical Loner, which lets them find whatever reanimation target in their entire deck they want. Flashbacking. Reanimation spell's a really nice one for Cynical Loner. Yeah, that was just an excellent manifest hit out of the top 2. I know the grass is always greener, but we have not even manifested into a creature a single time today. Okay. Stun that loner. It gets to use its ability again, though. Wow, this Cynical Loner's so bad. Wombo combo's just gonna go absolutely nuts here. I guess I fear of ability the Watchdog and trade the 4/4 into the loner when they crack back. I do think I need to send these 2 in. Does make it so if they can blow up Fear of Immobility, they'll get the loner attack off, but that would cost them too much mana to do that, and then also Ride of the Moth. Okay. White, black, 1, 2, 3. They have the mana for Ride of the Moth, and it still just skipped through their second main. That's very concerning. So they specifically clicked the buttons to pass through that as quickly as possible. Let's go Friendly Ghost. I can play that in Arabella. Discard and draw this turn. I did not need to play Arabella pre-combat. Just got too excited. Let's see what kind of instant thing this is. Ooh, the destroy any non-land permanent. Wow. That is exceptional here. Bring back Fear of Abduction and exile somebody else. Yeah, that's pretty gnarly. Not like as horrific as it could have been. Surprisingly, it doesn't kill 2 of our cards, it just killed 1 and bounced off another one. But it does find them lethal here because they still have bajillion removals. Alright. Rough game. I don't think I curved that out perfectly. Obviously, the play of trying to play around the Fear of Abduction, hoping to get them to exile Sheltered by Ghosts, ended up playing pretty poorly. We could have had Gremlin out a turn sooner. And had Gremlin been out a turn sooner, we would have gotten somewhere between like 4 to 6 extra points of damage. I don't remember exactly. But in the grand scheme of things, we still end up just losing that game to just the card quality they ended up with over there. I mean, hitting the Cynical Loner off of the weight room was pretty brutal. And then the drag to the roots, quite nuts there as well. So they could drag to the roots, and then if I even found a way to kill that, then they have like the Ride of the Moth Cynical Owner combo there. Yeah, very, very good stuff from our opponent there, and we are 3-3 for the return to Duskmourn. Perfectly balanced, perfectly average run, which is fine, all things considered. We ran into some very, very powerful decks, beat some opponents with great rares and mythics, lost to some opponents with great rares and mythics. Think I am fine with that result out of this deck. Obviously, I would have preferred this deck made it farther, and I think it was certainly capable of making it farther. But for a deck that didn't manage to really get any bomb rares in a format that is very bomb heavy and very princey, in my opinion, I think that's a perfectly serviceable record. But I think on average this deck could still do a little better than that. Probably like a 5-3 on average is what I would expect here. So still a minor bummer overall, but a respectable showing. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and are interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm send us more in a recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. And other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.